Okay, so moving on here, I mentioned that this was a domino effect. So I guess the question is, what is going to be the response that's going to come from this assassination? We've got a Serbian terrorist group here that is, and watch the video because you'll see that there's some controversy about who actually bears responsibility for the assassination and whether it's tied to the Serbian government and how that gets unearthed. But so the question, what's the response, right? So what is Austria-Hungary to do with this now? They've got, neighboring Serbia that they don't get along with, and in fact are looking to absorb. They've got one of their people here has assassinated a key leader. So we might think the immediate response is, okay, they're just going to sort of march across the border here, guns blazing, and voila, that's it. We've got a war, or at least a conflict between these two players. And that's not what they do, though. All right, Austria instead here is going to issue an ultimatum to Serbia. So I guess that word ultimatum is important, right? What does that mean? Well, we deal with ultimatums all the time, right? So this is something where an ultimatum essentially is you're given a choice, all right? In fact, you've got two choices. Now, before you make your decision, the consequence is told to you. It's revealed to you. All right. So, for example, if, parents give ultimatums all the time, right? To a child, they'll say, you have to be home by 11 o'clock tonight, or else you lose your cell phone for a week. Right. So if it's you we're talking about here, you have two choices. You can either be home by 11 o'clock and there's no consequence, or you can choose to be home beyond that, but the consequence in advance. So knowing the consequence in advance actually can influence your decision. So in this case, I guess, we've got to look at what in the world here is, and maybe why is important too, but what is Austria going to be asking for from Serbia? Well, it's a long list of demands that they're going to issue here. I guess maybe the question is why? Why did they take this approach here rather than just clearly going across the border? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that there's a realization here by Austria that there's much at stake. Okay, that this is a very politically charged time, and they know that there could be ramifications here that would be much bigger than. Just a conflict between these two countries. There's this understanding there could be a shockwave that could make this into a much larger issue. So part of this here is designed. It's a bit of a blame game, right? It's nobody wants the blood on their hands. That if this thing gets bigger than just the conflict between these two countries, nobody wants to sort of be the country saying, "Well, it was our fault," or we started it, right? That seems to matter whenever you look back at any conflict, right? Even in a school context, you have a schoolyard fight, right? And the first question is always who started it. For some reason, that seems to matter. In hockey, it's the instigator penalty or whatever. But that's definitely playing into things here. So we'll see. The other reason is that when this happens, was Austria expecting it? And the answer is no. So are they immediately ready to go to war? And the answer to that is also no. So they need time, right? They need time here to potentially mobilize to figure out what exactly their next play is going to be. Now, all the while, Serbia is left mulling this decision. What are we going to do with this ultimatum? Are we going to accept these terms, which Austria didn't expect at all? And certainly the terms were outlandish. They were asking for a lot from Serbia to avoid war. But in Serbia's case here, they've got to make a decision. And I think for them, before you make a decision, if you're a small country in Europe being threatened by a much larger empire, what would you do? Well, you would do what Serbia does. They're going to look to neighboring Russia and say, hey, listen, we've got a relationship here. We get along, and there could be some things at stake here. Will you back us up if Austria becomes aggressive with us? So now we've got another player involved here, and Russia's got to mull this decision as well. Now we know militarism is the order of the day, so there is a willingness to fight here. And invariably, there's a couple of things that exist here. Russia and Austria-Hungary are in competing alliances, so we know they don't get along, and there's land at stake. So there's good reason for Russia to want to give support.